you happen to be wondering why there's a massive hole in my bookshelf, it's because, well, I have a problem with buying books, and today I'm going to show you all of them, so you can shame me in the comments about how I'm not being fiscally responsible and also not reading the books that are on my TBR. Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie, and today I'm going to be doing a book haul. Highly anticipated, I think, because I showed off me going to Barnes & Noble in my most recent vlog, and I literally have a stack of books that's like shoulder high. I am sitting on the ground, so don't worry. It's not actually shoulder high. That'd be five and a lot of feet. Books stacked. Buckle up, get yourself a drink, because this one might be a long one. I have some new releases, I have some backlist, I have some recommendations from friends, and overall I'm very excited to be showing you the books that I bought because I'm obsessed with books. The first one is a literary agent's book. This is by Debbie Mayer. This was given to me by my brother because he understands the assignment of being a good brother. Basically, it's just a kind of a small, short little guide about the publishing world, basically the basics of finding an agent. The next two are books that I got at a vintage shop that had a bunch of vintage clothing, records, and of course, books. So there are two books that I bought there that aren't necessarily on my TBR. They're just two books that I like to have. The first one is one that I already own, but I decided to buy this copy for a very specific reason, and that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. If you have been on my channel for a really long time, last year I posted a video called My Vaguely Salty Literature Opinions, and I talked about how much I love Frankenstein. I will post the video in the cards so you can go watch it if you want. It's kind of ridiculous, but I still really like that video. But the reason I picked up this copy is, one, look at this ridiculously fun cover. Also, it has been annotated by the previous owner. So that's what I really liked about it. I picked it up because I saw the cover, and of course I was flipping through and I saw all of these really neat, really awesome, really cool annotations, and I thought it'd be really neat to read this again and then look at the person's annotations and maybe annotate it myself. I think it's really cool that we can mark up books in the way that they change us and shape us, and then, you know, if they're given to someone else, they can see what our thoughts were when we were reading. So that is why I picked up this particular copy of Frankenstein, just for one day to maybe have some fun, maybe make a video about it. The next book is one that I bought on an impulse, and it's mostly because I already have the sequel. I put sequel in quotes, you'll understand in a second. And the book is The Iliad by Homer. You know how it is. I really like the spine. Look at the Trojan warrior. Maybe it's Greek, but this is a 1943 edition with the English verse translated by Alexander Pope, which I thought was pretty cool. It's a nice looking book, and it's from the 40s, so I'm a sucker for vintage books. Probably read it at some point. I would love to do an Iliad retelling. The reason I said sequel is because I have like 2 copies of the Odyssey above me. I am planning on hopefully maybe one day reading the Iliad and the Odyssey together again. I've already read them before, but I would love to do a like story based on the Iliad or the Odyssey because I'm a Greek slut. Okay, now on to the books that I bought at Barnes & Noble because I am absolutely obsessed with buying books. I did go 3 separate times to Barnes & Noble because I hadn't been in one in literally so long. Let's just jump right into it. The first book I'm going to show you is one I picked up because it is one of my dear friends, one of her favorite books, and that is A Winter's Promise by Christelle Davos. Christelle Davos. I'm not French.
The pièce de résistance.
I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce French things. I think we know this. I think this is about Mirror Realms, Beauty and the Beast, inspo, like kind of Beauty and the Beast-ish. It has like an arranged marriage. I think it has some fun things in it. I've heard so many good things about this. It is one of Wallace's favorite books. Also, funnily enough, my nails match the cover. Interesting little tidbit. The next is one that I had to get the minute I saw it because I hadn't realized it was out. I'm so excited about this book. Oh, you have no idea. And that is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. This is a historical fantasy that takes place in 1300s China. This is about 2 young children who were orphaned after an attack on their village, and the one who was said to be like the savior of the family and of China ends up dying, and so the other sibling has to take over his role and has to basically dress like a man. It's a lot about identity and rebellion and finding who you are and that kind of thing. I am so excited. I've heard nothing but amazing things about this book. I'm so excited to read this. Destiny comes to those who dare, and yeah, so I hear it's like Mulan, and Mulan is my favorite Disney movie. The next book is another one that I got because I saw a book TikTok about it, and I could not stop thinking about it, and I can't also not wait to read it. Obviously, it's why I bought all these books. I need to stop saying that. And that is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. This is a 1950s sapphic teenage romance. It's about two girls who end up falling in love in the 50s and kind of dealing with being gay during this time. Yeah. That's all I needed to know. I believe its own voices. It is Asian American literature and has to do a lot with like identity and of course being queer, and you know I love that. I can't get enough. The next one is one I've had on my list for a very long time. I take pictures whenever I go to Barnes & Noble of books that I want when I'm not going to buy books. I explicitly went all 3 times with the intention of buying books, so of course this one had to be on there. And that is The Black Prison by Brent Weeks. This is a thick, chunky fantasy. It's the first in I think a 4-book series. I think all of the books are out. I'm unsure, probably. Apparently he sold 4 million copies, which is insane to me. Apparently there's like rainbow light magic, which is kind of cool and fun. I've just heard nothing but good things about this book, so when I'm feeling like a thick, chunky fantasy, I'm gonna dive right in, which you can tell I'm always in the mood for a thick, chunky fantasy considering the rest of the books in this pile. The next book I got is The Jade City by Fonda. This is a heist gang mobster adult fantasy. It's about people who have been able to use jade to manipulate the world around them and for magical powers. It's a gangster book, it's a heist book, I think, maybe it's a magic book. I'm all about gang wars and stuff, like I'm all about reading about that stuff, so it also apparently won the 2017 Nebula Award, which is very high praise. And then, of course, one of my favorite authors, I've only read one of her books, so of course, when I saw this book, I immediately snatched it off the shelves, and that's The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I read The Priory of the Orange Tree earlier this year, and so I decided that I'm going to read the Bone Season series as well, so I obviously picked up the first one, which is The Bone Season. This is about a young girl who is a clairvoyant in a society where clairvoyants are hunted down for their abilities. They're not allowed to use them, and she works for an undercover ring of clairvoyants. And she is like their eyes and ears on the city, and she has a lot of shit going down. Kind of a dystopian. I hesitate to call it a fantasy, even though a lot of the powers have similar vibes to a fantasy, but I believe this is a dystopian. She apparently wrote this when she was like 18, so I'm excited to dive in. I know it's not going to be nearly as good as Priory because she wrote Priory when she was like 29. It's a big difference between those ages, but I'm excited to get into this series. Next is no surprise, more high fantasy, and this is The Unbroken by C.L. Clark. This is a North African inspired high fantasy about a soldier who is kidnapped as a child and is like a assassin warrior of some kind, and basically a war happens in their kingdom and they have to figure out a bunch of shit, and like, you know, it's a fantasy. What else can I say? It's a thick chunky boy. Look at that fun cover. Yeah, here's the thing. I barely ever buy books with knowing what they're actually about, so it's a fact about me. It's a fantasy. I'll let you know what it's about after I read it. Next is a YA fantasy by a author I have heard of, but I've never read anything of, and that is Blade of Secrets by Tricia Levinseller. This is a YA fantasy, I believe, about a girl who is a blacksmith, and she makes a sword that is able to pull secrets from people. Like when you get cut on it, it makes you tell all your secrets and like gets the truth. I think it might be sentient. I hope it's sentient. I love the sentient sword trope. May or may not have that in several of my own works. The concept is really what drew me in. I personally really like the idea of a sword that can steal secrets, so I was like, you know what? Sign me up. Yet another high fantasy, The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Shuri. This is the first in a series. I believe the next book comes out next year. I'm so excited to read this. I found her on TikTok, and I'm kind of obsessed with what this is about. It's a sapphic, epic, enemies to lovers fantasy. I love it. It sounds like it takes place in the desert as well. It just sounds fun. Blades to the throat, but also like homoerotic baths and like hair braiding, I think. Can't wait to read it. I think it's gonna be my next read.
The next book is yet another fantasy.
And this is Master of One by Jade Jones and Danny Bennett. This is a YA fantasy about a thief who is charged with stealing a fairy relic. Turns out that fairy relic is a very handsome man. Fairy gentleman, Fairy male? I don't know. I haven't read the book. Oh my god, are we surprised? It's
Yet another high fantasy.
This is Black Sun by Rebecca Roundhouse. Roundhorse. I always get it wrong. Rebecca Roundhorse. This is an indigenous Native American inspired fantasy. Sounds so good. It's inspired by pre-Columbus America, pre-colonialization. It says it's woven a tale of celestial prophecies. Sign me up. Forbidden magic. Sign me up even more. And crafted with unforgettable characters. It's an epic fantasy adventure. So I think it has to do with like religion and eclipses and like fun shit happening like that. That's all my jam. I can't wait to read this. It's also the most wonderful, ow, I just smacked my head, floppy paperback. I can't wait to literally just open it like this and read it. Like, it's my perfect kind of paperback. It's so floppy. Perfect.
Oh my god, are we surprised? It's yet another epic fantasy.
This is The Witch King by H.E. Edgman. This is a queer fantasy kind of thing going on. I am here for it. It has fae and witches, and I know that Danny, aka Somber Honey, she recently read this book. Maybe not recently by the time this video comes out, but she read this book and was talking about it on her channel, so I was really excited to read it. It sounds super interesting. I can't wait to dive in. It's queer, it's fantasy, it's found family. I'm a simple gal. I see things I like, I pick it up, I buy. Do not worry, my friends, we are nearly done. The next one is one that I actually hadn't heard of, and I believe it's a gothic fantasy, and that is What We Devour by Lindsay Miller. I've actually never heard of this book. I picked it up because, oh god, I need to like shove these to the side. I picked this up because on my trip, I picked up this one, which has the buy one, get one 50% off sticker, so I went on to the sale place and picked out this one. It's about a woman who has a bunch of power to like destroy gods or whatever, but she just wants to live her normal life as a mortician. But when a prince comes to like arrest her father for some reason, he realizes what power she has and is like,
hey, I'll make you a deal. I won't arrest, torture, and kill your father if you come with me and help me defeat these evil gods that are trying to destroy our kingdom. Sound good?
And then she's like,
Sure, sounds like fun.
and I said, sign me up. So it's like a fun gothic fantasy. Oh my god, yet another fantasy. And that is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This is literally a book that's been on my radar forever since it came out. I think she's like one of the youngest New York Times bestselling authors ever. She's like my age and she's already on the New York Times bestselling list with like so many books in the works. And I'm like, I would like to be you, please, when I grow up. Even though we're the same age. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling taking place in Shanghai. It is a YA kind of historical fantasy. There are dragons and sea monsters and stuff, I think, coming out of the Shanghai River. Super here for it. Yeah, it takes place in the 20s. It has our main characters who are Romeo and Juliet. They're trying to kill each other, enemies to lovers, but they must band together to save the city so that they can rule it in their little like gangs that they have. Eventually, they're like heirs to gang thrones or whatever. I don't know gang terminology, especially not in the 20s. I don't know. You haven't heard about this book? What are you doing? Are you living under a rock? Also, Chloe Gong's TikTok is literally to die for, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna actually support her and buy this book. So, oh my god, it's another. Just kidding. It's not actually another fantasy. This is a dark academia book. What? Not a fantasy? Are you joking? And that is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. This is one of my most highly anticipated releases of the year. This is a dark academia book about a girl who goes to an all-girls school to kind of figure out the mystery of what happened of this like murder investigation thing. It's sapphic, own voices, queer representation. Victoria Lee is also a trans author, so support her and that kind of thing. Do I need to say more? Dark academia, sapphic murder mystery. Again, I'm a simple woman of simple means with simple wants. This happens to check all of those things. And finally, the last book.
Oh my goodness, it's not an epic fantasy?
What? This is wild.
This is a contemporary. I know you're probably thinking, oh my god, Katie, why the hell don't you have another epic fantasy for us? Because I bought every other epic fantasy that I wanted. This is Darius the Great Is Not Okay by Adib Karam. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of these names. This is a queer book about a teenage boy who goes to Iran to live with his grandparents, and he ends up meeting a boy, and they end up having like a whirlwind summer, and like deals a lot with like queer identity, mental health, all those kinds of things. So I don't know if this is actually a romance or if it's just a platonic kind of fun moment. Don't really care either way. Either one sounds good to me. I'm trying to read more contemporary, just like switch it up a little bit. I've also, for some reason, I think I've heard somewhere that it kind of has Dante and Aristotle discover the secrets of the universe Roundhouse vibes, and that's one of my favorite books, so even if it has even a little bit of those vibes, I know I'm gonna love it. Whew! We made it, y'all. Y'all made it through this book haul. I know it was crazy long, so many books. Could a girl buy more books? Probably. Anyway, those are all the books that I bought. I hope you make more fiscally responsible choices than I do when it comes to books. If not, don't worry, I'm here for you and your book buying addiction. We should start a group, I think, because I definitely need the support because I am so bad at not buying books. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see more of my rambling face. I make content about writing and buying books. Obviously, I don't read enough because I don't make many reading wrap-ups. There goes my diploma. Don't mind me just casually sitting in front of my literature diploma. I gotta go, so I'll see you next week. Bye!